The night air along Route 73 had that kind of silence you only hear right before a storm. Not empty, just waiting. Every few seconds the wind dragged through the pines and the trees whispered like they were talking about you. Inside his patrol cruiser, State Trooper Daniel Reeves stared at the rain crawling down his windshield. The wipers hadn't moved in 20 minutes. He liked the sound of the rain. It made the world smaller, tighter. You could almost believe there was nothing beyond it. He was parked by the tree line near a stretch of road locals called Deadman's Hollow. Officially, it didn't exist on the map anymore. The old highway had been rerouted decades ago after too many wrecks that no one could explain. But people still drove through. Teenagers chasing dares, truckers who missed a turn. Sometimes, people who didn't come back. Unit 47, we've got a 1026, vehicle abandoned off Route 73 near Deadman's Hollow. The voice from dispatch crackled and faded. Reeves leaned forward, tapping the receiver. Copy that. I'm nearby. I'll check it out. For a second, the line stayed open. Then, faintly, like a breath too close to the mic, he heard something repeat his words. I'll check it out. The echo was softer, drawn out, almost like it was mocking him. He sat back, blinking. Probably a feedback loop, he told himself. The radio tower was old, the wiring worse. He'd heard stranger glitches. Still, something about the voice. It sounded like him. The headlights cut through the mist as his cruiser rolled down the road. The fog thickened with every turn, curling around the beam like smoke. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other on his sidearm, out of habit more than fear. The dispatcher's voice came back, flat and distant. Unit 47, confirm you're en route. I'm en route, he said. But the reply that followed made his stomach tighten. Negative, Unit 47. We show you already there. He checked his GPS. The screen flickered, a frozen blue dot exactly where he'd started. He tapped the screen, cursed under his breath. He passed a rusted sign half buried in weeds. Deadman's Hollow, mile marker 0. The mile that doesn't end. That's what the locals called it. He'd heard the stories his first week on the force, people driving that stretch for hours, the same trees, the same road signs, until their gas ran out. Some said it was magnetic interference from the hills. Others said it was something older, buried under the road. Reeves never believed it. Not until that night. The rain picked up, pounding against the hood. The road curved, and in the glare of his headlights he saw it. A car. Silver sedan sitting sideways across the lane. Driver's door open, hazard lights blinking slow and tired. He parked behind it, stepped out into the wet air. The smell hit him first. Not decay, just old earth, wet bark, something like rust. He called out, Tennessee State Trooper! Anyone here? Only the rain answered. He approached the car. The driver's seat was empty. Radio still on, whispering faint static. On the dashboard lay a wallet, half open, soaked through. He lifted it carefully, shining his flashlight on the ID. Eleanor Cates. The name rang a bell. Missing person report from a few weeks back. Never found. Last seen heading toward these woods. Reeves felt the air change, colder, thicker. The forest seemed to lean closer. He reached for his shoulder mic. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I've located the vehicle, belongs to... Located the vehicle, belongs to... The voice repeated him. Same rhythm, same breath between the words. He froze. Looked at the radio. Dispatch? Then, softly, Daniel. He dropped the mic like it burned him. His name, whispered, too close. He scanned the tree line, just rain, just fog, nothing there. But something in the dark felt alive. The kind of presence you don't see but feel pressing against your skin. He turned back toward his cruiser. The headlights flickered. For half a second he saw a figure standing just beyond the beam. Tall, still, facing him. Lightning flashed, and it was gone. Reeves stood there, soaked, heart hammering. He told himself it was a shadow, a trick of the storm. He climbed back into the car, locking the doors. His reflection in the rearview mirror looked wrong, pale, eyes wide. He leaned closer, trying to calm himself. The radio flared again, high-pitched and warped, voices overlapping, his, dispatch, and something else, whispering beneath them all. He turned it off. The silence that followed was worse. Outside, the rain began to fall straight down, no wind, no movement. Every droplet landed in perfect rhythm, like a metronome marking time. He sat still, counting each one. Then from the back seat, a faint sound. He turned slowly. The back seat was empty. Just his jacket, his clipboard, his flashlight. But the papers, the incident reports, were moving as if something had brushed across them. Not real, he whispered to himself. Real. Not real. He reached back, touching the folder. It was cold. Too cold. The driver's side door began to open on its own. The rain should have been pounding, but it sounded distant now, like he was underwater. And through the open door came a voice, faint, pleading, like a woman calling for help. Please, please don't leave me here. He grabbed his flashlight and stepped out. The beam cut through the mist in thin, trembling lines. Eleanor? He called out. No answer. Just a soft hum that seemed to rise from the ground itself. He walked toward the trees. The road behind him disappeared into fog. His footsteps were the only sound until... Daniel. He froze. That's when he noticed it, his footprints. They didn't lead away from the car. They circled it, over and over, as if he'd been walking the same loop for hours. He looked back at the cruiser, headlights dim, engine idling, and in the reflection of the windshield, just for a heartbeat, he saw himself sitting inside, watching. Rain whispered against the roof of the cruiser as Reeves stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The face that looked back at him was washed pale by the dashboard glow. Tired eyes, shallow breath, a pulse just a little too fast. He turned the ignition off. The silence that followed wasn't silence at all. It was the hum beneath everything, the kind that hides in your ears just under the sound of blood. The silver sedan sat crooked on the wet asphalt, one door open, hazard lights blinking steady as a heartbeat. He stepped out, pulling the collar of his jacket against the rain. The smell hit him first. Wet pine, rust, and something faintly metallic. It didn't smell like blood. It smelled like memory. He leaned into the car. The keys were gone. The overhead light flickered once, then died. Water dripped from the roof into the cup holder in even intervals. A slow, maddening metronome. A wallet on the seat. He picked it up, turned it over in his hand. Eleanor Cates. He'd seen her missing poster at the station. Smiling, young, last seen heading home from a late shift. Reeves rubbed his thumb across the ID photo, then froze. Her eyes seemed different. Not frightened, but watching. He blinked. The illusion was gone. He pressed the mic on his shoulder. Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I've located the vehicle of missing subject Eleanor Cates. No sign of... The vehicle of missing subject Eleanor Cates. No sign of... The echo came through the static, his own voice repeating. He stared at the receiver. "Dispatch, confirm transmission?" No response. Just that hum, steady, low, and almost alive. "Not real," he whispered. "Real. Not real." He leaned back inside, shining his flashlight over the interior. On the passenger floor sat a paperback, waterlogged, open to a page marked in pencil. Sometimes the voice in the woods isn't calling you in. Sometimes it's trying to get out. He snapped it shut. The rain slowed, or maybe his heartbeat did. The sound stretched thin, distance between each drop. He checked the dashboard clock. 12:37 a.m. He looked away, looked back. 12:37 a.m. The seconds didn't move. He rubbed his temple, told himself it was a glitch. Every cop knows what sleep deprivation does after 10-hour shifts. You start hearing your own name in white noise. Still, he couldn't stop glancing toward the trees. They stood there like a wall, unmoving. Every now and then, lightning flashed and gave the illusion that they breathed. He walked the perimeter of the car, boots sinking slightly in mud. There were footprints. Not hers, smaller than his, but recent. They led away from the car, then circled back, over and over. He crouched and touched the last print. Cold water pooled inside it. He looked at his own boot tracks. They lined up perfectly with hers. A breath caught in his throat. He straightened, turned toward the cruiser, but stopped when he saw something sitting on the hood. A small photograph, soaked but visible under the wipers. He picked it up carefully. A Polaroid. The same car, same spot, but daylight. A woman's outline in front of the door, head tilted toward the lens, hand raised in a half wave. On the bottom, written in black ink, "If you find this, don't follow me." He flipped it over. The back was blank except for a faint smudge, a fingerprint, his size. Lightning cracked again. He looked up. For a split second through the trees, he thought he saw movement. Not running, not walking, just a shape, too still to be animal, too solid to be fog. He aimed his flashlight at the spot. The beam caught only mist. "Eleanor?" he called out, voice hoarse. Nothing. Just rain finding its rhythm again. He exhaled slowly, went back to his cruiser. The headlights flickered once as he opened the door. Inside, the radio clicked on by itself. "Unit 47, said a calm female voice. "You shouldn't be there." Reeves grabbed the mic. "Who is this?" No answer. "Dispatch, identify yourself." The voice returned, quieter, distorted, and this time, male. "You shouldn't be there." It was his voice. He dropped the mic. The static didn't stop. It kept pulsing like a heartbeat through the speakers. He looked up at the windshield. For a moment, he thought he saw movement in the reflection, something behind him in the back seat. He turned. Empty. Only his clipboard, his jacket, the faint smell of rain and metal. He started the engine, planning to leave, to call this in from somewhere higher up the ridge, but the moment he shifted into drive, the headlights cut out. Total darkness. He sat there breathing hard, fingers tightening on the wheel. The hum from the radio deepened until it wasn't static anymore. It was a tone. Low. Almost human. He turned it off. And in the silence, he heard a whisper just outside the glass. "Daniel." He froze. The voice was so close it fogged the side window. He saw the condensation bloom, shaped by breath. He reached for his sidearm with shaking hands, stepped out into the rain. The beam of his flashlight swept across empty road. No one there. The fog shifted like curtains in a slow breeze. Behind it, the outline of trees waited, patient, familiar. Then he saw it. Something glinting near the ditch. He walked closer, boots splashing through shallow puddles. It was another Polaroid, half buried in mud. He picked it up and wiped it clean. This one was darker. The same car, but no daylight, no woman. Just a man standing near the driver's side door, hand on his radio. The photo had been taken from behind him, from right where he stood now. He looked up slowly. The forest beyond the ditch was still, quiet, expectant. He swallowed hard. "Not real," he whispered. "Real? Not real." Lightning flared again, and for a split second he saw himself, his own silhouette, standing deep among the trees facing him. Then the flash was gone. The woods were black. He backed toward his cruiser, keeping the light on the trees. The air felt heavier now, like he was underwater, like every sound came from miles away. He opened the door, slid inside, locked it. The Polaroid sat on the passenger seat, rain still dripping from its edges. The radio came alive one last time, whispering through static. His own voice again, low and resigned. "You shouldn't have followed her." Reeves whispered back without meaning to. "I didn't." The static paused, then replied, "Yes, you did." The cruiser's dashboard clock still read 12:37 a.m. Reeves tapped the glass once, twice. The second hand didn't move. Outside, the hazard lights on the silver sedan blinked in uneven rhythm. Slow, slower, stop. Then they came back on again, reversed, as if time had decided to loop the wrong way. He rubbed his temples and told himself he'd drive back to the main highway as soon as the storm eased. That was what procedure demanded. But the whisper that had fogged his window had sounded too human, too desperate. He had to check the tree line, just a quick search, just enough to quiet the part of him that couldn't stand leaving someone calling his name. He opened the door. The air felt heavier now, thick with the smell of pine and clay. He turned on his body cam. The red light blinked once and stayed dim. He patted the mic. Nothing. He crossed the ditch in 2 strides, boots sinking into mud. Beyond the first row of trees, the rain vanished. No drops reached the forest floor. It was as if the canopy held the storm outside the way glass keeps water from a candle flame. He swept the flashlight beam left to right. The light seemed to dissolve before it reached the second line of trunks. He moved forward anyway. Each step landed softer than it should have, as if the ground were learning how to echo him. He passed an old fence post, half-rotted, wire twisted like veins. A scrap of blue cloth fluttered there, the same shade as the uniform shirt he wore. He stared at it a beat too long before forcing his hand to let it go. "Eleanor?" he called, voice hushed by the moss. "Ma'am, this is State Trooper Daniel Reeves. If you can hear me, call out." A pause. Then a faint reply. "Hear me?" His heart jumped. "Where are you?" "Where are you?" It was his own cadence, word for word, breath for breath. He stepped back, beam trembling. "Not real. Real. Not real." He turned to retrace his path, but found only trees. No ditch, no cars. The forest had folded around him like a closing hand. He clicked his radio. Silence. He toggled the flashlight off and on. The beam returned weaker, yellowed. He picked a direction and started walking. Branches brushed his sleeves like fingertips. When the next flash of lightning came, it didn't come from above but from behind the trees, a white flare deep in the woods that froze every shadow mid-gesture. He ducked instinctively. When his eyes adjusted, he saw something shining on the ground ahead. A badge. His badge. He reached for it, then stopped. His badge was pinned to his chest. He touched it. Still there, cold. He looked down again. The one in the mud glinted back. Same number, same scratches along the rim. He left it where it lay. The hum under the air grew louder, like power lines over wet pavement. He followed it, he couldn't help himself, until the trees parted into a small clearing. At its center stood a wooden shack, ancient, leaning, roof collapsed inward. He could smell wet paper and diesel. He should have turned around. Instead, he stepped closer. Inside, his light found the remains of a table, a lantern, and walls scrawled with words that had bled into one another. Stay on the road. Stay with the light. Stay with the voice. Each phrase crossed out except the last. He heard a faint tapping. It came from the corner where the lantern sat. He raised the flashlight. Nothing but a broken portable radio lying on its side, its dial twitching between stations. Voices leaked through. Dispatch codes, weather alerts. Then something else. Unit 47, status check. His own voice answered from the speaker, steady and procedural. Unit 47, code 1023, investigating abandoned vehicle. He stared, throat dry. He hadn't spoken those words in how long? 10 minutes? An hour? The recording kept going. Temperature dropped 10 degrees. Suspect footprints present. Unit 47, do you require assistance? Asked the dispatch voice. And then the recording, his recording, laughed. Short, wrong. He yanked the battery out. The silence that followed was absolute. He turned to leave and froze. A shadow blocked the doorway. Tall, still, facing him. The flashlight caught no face, just the shape of a trooper's hat and rain-dark uniform. Back up, he tried. Identify yourself. The shadow tilted its head the way a curious animal might. Then it raised its right hand, a mirror of his own, and touched its shoulder mic. From somewhere in the trees behind, the radio crackled. Unit 47, do you require assistance? He stumbled back, beam shaking across the walls. The figure stepped into the light, and the space where its face should have been filled with shifting static. He dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly, slicing across the shack. When he snatched it up again, the doorway was empty. He ran. Branches whipped his arms. Roots caught his boots. He kept the light aimed ahead, not daring to look back. The trees thinned, and suddenly he was out on the road again, rain slamming his shoulders like applause. The sedan waited where he'd left it. The cruiser's headlights glowed steady. For one heartbeat, he thought the world had righted itself. He reached the asphalt and stopped. There were two sets of tire tracks now, one leading in, one leading out. His cruiser sat exactly where it had before, but fresh headlights were approaching from the opposite direction. He shielded his eyes. A second patrol car rolled to a stop. Identical markings, same unit number. The driver's window slid down. Inside sat a man in uniform, hat brim low. Reeves stepped closer, rain dripping from his chin. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. The man inside raised his head. Same face, same tired eyes. His own. The other Reeves smiled faintly. "You found her again," he said through the hiss of rain. Reeves blinked. "What?" The other's lips moved slower now, syncing with the static hum coming from both cruisers. "You always find her. You always stay." The wipers on both cars began moving in perfect time. The radio in each cab clicked on and off, words spilling between them like echoes crossing a canyon. Reeves took a step back. The other turned the wheel, headlights angling toward the forest. For a moment, the beam caught the outline of a woman standing between the trees. Eleanor Cates, pale, expressionless, hand lifted in that same half-wave from the photograph. Reeves called out, "Eleanor!" But the sound drowned under thunder. The other cruiser blinked its lights once and vanished. Not drove away, vanished. The rain hit the asphalt where it had stood. Reeves staggered forward, staring at the empty space, the fading tire tracks, the steam rising from wet tar. He whispered to the dark, "Not real. Real. Not real." From the trees came the reply, low and tired, his own voice layered with hers. "Stay with the voice." Reeves sat motionless behind the wheel, drenched uniform clinging to his shoulders. He'd been staring at the dashboard clock for what felt like hours, waiting for the minute to change. It never did. 12:37 a.m. The world was a tape loop. He killed the engine. The rain softened into a murmur. The air inside the cruiser smelled of wet leather and ozone. He turned the key halfway to auxiliary power. The dashcam light blinked alive. He pressed play. The camera feed showed what he expected, his headlights cutting through fog, the silver sedan, the empty road. Then it changed. The image jumped, skipping frames. The trees shifted closer to the road between each cut like they'd leaned in to watch. He frowned, fast-forwarded. The video jumped to a moment that hadn't happened. He was standing outside the car, pointing his flashlight toward the woods. His voice on the recording said, "Dispatch, she's here." He froze. He'd never said that. The next clip showed him, same jacket, same hat, walking into the tree line and vanishing into black. Then another cut, the cruiser sitting empty, headlights on. The timestamp advanced 7 minutes, then 8. Then from the passenger seat view, a shape appeared in the back seat. Out of focus, pale, breathing slow. He slammed the playback off. The silence inside the cruiser pressed against him. He looked up at the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty, but the faint outline of something remained in the fogged glass, like condensation where a face had leaned close. He wiped the mirror. The mark didn't smear. It disappeared, then returned as soon as he blinked. He whispered to himself, "Not real. Real. Not real." He turned the radio knob to scan. Channels flicked past. Country music warped thin, weather warnings, open static. Then, faintly, his own voice again. "Unit 47. You never left. Do you copy?" He grabbed the mic. "Who is this?" "Identify yourself." The voice on the other end chuckled. His own nervous laugh dragged and hollow. "You copy," it repeated. He dropped the mic onto the floor. The metal clatter sounded too loud, like the room of a dream where every noise carried meaning. He reached for his report pad, flipping through the damp pages. Each line he'd written earlier, the date, the location, now bled and rearranged. The words spelled different things. "Stop answering her. You never stop." He stared until the letters blurred, then tore the page free and stuffed it into his pocket. He turned the headlights on again, needing the light even if it made no difference. The beams caught movement on the far side of the sedan. Something crouched there, small, still. He stepped out of the cruiser, boots crunching gravel. "Eleanor?" he called. No response, just the rain. He moved closer, flashlight raised. The shape straightened slowly. A figure, a woman, soaked hair plastered to her cheeks. Her skin gleamed the way skin does when it's been underwater too long. She looked up, eyes black, unreadable. "Are you hurt?" Reeves asked, voice cracking. She tilted her head, lips parting. "You found me," she said, but the voice was his. He stumbled backward. She stepped toward him, each motion wrong, like her body was remembering how to move. "Stay back," he barked. "I said stay." Lightning tore through the sky, and she was gone. Only rain where she'd stood. He turned in circles, heart slamming his ribs. The air behind him shifted. Cold breath grazed the back of his neck. He spun around, flashlight beam cutting nothing but fog. The hum returned, low, pulsing, steady, like a generator underground. His radio hissed. A voice whispered, "Check the trunk." He didn't want to. He had to. He popped the trunk latch. The lid lifted on its own halfway. Inside, his equipment was neatly arranged. Flares, emergency blanket, evidence bags, and something else. The same Polaroid he'd found earlier. Except this one was dry, clean, fresh. He picked it up. Same image, the silver sedan, daylight, the woman's half-wave, but this time, a shadow stood beside her. His outline. He dropped it like it stung. The rain didn't touch it. It lay on the trunk floor perfectly dry, as if sealed under glass. The hum rose higher, the air vibrating with it. His flashlight dimmed. Then, everything went black. He froze, breathing through his teeth. The beam flickered back to life and revealed his cruiser door standing open, interior lights glowing faintly. He hadn't opened it. He climbed in, shaking, trying to steady his breath. The seat felt cold, damp, as if someone had been sitting there moments ago. On the passenger seat, the Polaroid waited. He hadn't brought it inside. He whispered, "Not real. Real. Not real." He turned it over. The back had new writing scrawled in thick black marker. "Stop listening." He looked up. The radio dial flicked on by itself. The same calm dispatch voice from earlier spoke. "Unit 47, confirm status." He hesitated. I don't know what's happening out here. Describe surroundings." He swallowed. "Abandoned vehicle. Possible missing person. Heavy fog." Pause. Then, "Negative, Unit 47. You're describing your own report." "What?" "Check your file." He grabbed the clipboard, flipping through soggy sheets. One page near the back held a printed report. His report. Date stamped 2 years ago. Missing person case. Trooper Daniel Reeves. Last seen investigating vehicle belonging to Eleanor Cates, Route 73. Cruiser recovered. No body found. He felt the air leave his lungs. The dispatch voice softened, almost kind. "You never left the mile, Daniel. You only think you did." He shook his head violently. No, I just called in. You heard me, I'm here." "You're still there." He grabbed the radio mic, shouting now. "If this is some kind of joke, I swear to God!" The static roared, drowning him. Through the noise came the faint echo of his own voice, calm and procedural. "Unit 47, 1023, investigating abandoned vehicle. Time of arrival, 12:37 a.m. The same phrase, looping. He turned off the radio. The hum continued anyway, growing from beneath the floorboards. The cruiser began to vibrate lightly, the mirrors rattling. The air outside was still. He looked out the windshield. The sedan was gone. Only wet road and fog stretching endlessly in both directions. He reached for the ignition. The key wouldn't turn. The dashcam light blinked. On its tiny screen, a reflection of his face appeared. Behind him, barely visible in the frame, movement. A shape leaning closer from the darkness of the back seat. He turned. Nothing. He turned back to the screen. Now his own reflection was gone. Only the empty seat remained. He whispered, "Not real. Real. Not real." And this time, the voice that answered didn't come from the radio or from the woods. It came from right beside his ear. "Then stop pretending." The air inside the cruiser felt too still, like someone had taken a deep breath and never exhaled. Reeves gripped the steering wheel hard enough for the leather to squeak. He told himself to drive. Just drive. Get out of the hollow. He turned the key again. The engine started, smooth, obedient. Headlights cut through the fog like two white knives. He exhaled and pressed the accelerator. The car rolled forward. The mile marker flashed by. 0. He passed the next one. 0. And the next. 0. He eased off the gas, pulse kicking against his throat. The fog thinned for half a second, just long enough for him to see what lay ahead. His own cruiser. Parked across the road. Headlights on. He slammed the brakes. He sat there, engine idling, staring at the impossible reflection of himself. A twin vehicle, same plate number, same mud splatter along the bumper. The figure behind the wheel didn't move. Reeves stepped out into the rain. "Hello?" Nothing. He approached slowly, hand resting on his holster. The figure in the other cruiser stayed still, head turned slightly toward the window. Lightning flickered across the sky and illuminated the face inside. His face. He stumbled back, boots skidding on wet pavement. The other Reeves stared straight ahead now, unblinking. He shouted, "Who are you?" The figure smiled. Small, patient, then leaned toward the radio. "Unit 47, it said in his voice. "Confirm you've located the vehicle." Reeves reached for his own mic, shaking. I don't understand. What is this?" "Confirm you've located the vehicle," the other repeated, lips barely moving. The rain stopped. The sound simply switched off. Even the static hum died. The world waited. Reeves whispered, "Not real. Real. Not real." The second cruiser blinked out. One frame of lightning, it was there. The next, gone. The space where it stood was filled with mist that smelled faintly of hot metal and ozone. He turned in a slow circle. No road, no trees, just white fog pressing from every direction, as if the world had forgotten how to finish loading. He stumbled toward where the forest should have been and found the ditch again. But something about it was wrong. The water inside was still, perfectly still, reflecting the sky like a mirror. When he knelt to look, the reflection wasn't his. It was Eleanor's. Her lips moved soundlessly beneath the surface. He whispered, "I'm here." Her reflection whispered back, "So am I." He reached out. The water rippled and her hand rose from underneath to meet his. Wet fingers brushed his wrist. Cold. Human. He jerked away, fell backward into the gravel. When he looked again, the ditch was empty. The hum returned, fainter now, but closer, like something breathing against his ear. He stood, unsteady. The fog shifted and formed shapes, faint silhouettes walking the road, moving like shadows cast without bodies. They all wore trooper hats. All of them faced the woods. He walked toward the nearest one, heart hammering. "Hey, you! Stop!" No reaction. The closer he got, the more transparent the figure became, until he could see the faint glow of headlights through its chest. They weren't people. They were echoes. "Help me!" he shouted. "How do I get out?" They turned their heads in unison, the movement soft as a sigh. Dozens of faces. All his. All Daniel Reeves. He stumbled back, clutching his radio like it could anchor him. "Dispatch, please!" he yelled. "I need extraction. I need—" "Unit 47, we told you not to go back." "I didn't! Daniel," the voice cut in, quieter now, almost tender. "We can't bring you out again." He stared at the radio, voice cracking. "Again?" Static hissed, then shifted into faint laughter. Dozens of voices layered together. The sound rose and fell like waves. He dropped the mic. The laughter kept coming, circling him, fading into the mist. He backed up until his shoulders hit metal. His cruiser. Except it wasn't. The paint was sun-bleached, rust crawling along the fenders. A cracked windshield sagged inward under the weight of years. He ran a shaking hand across the door. Flakes of paint peeled away to reveal faded letters. State Trooper, Unit 47. His own car, long abandoned. He forced himself to look inside. The skeleton behind the wheel wore his badge. He stumbled back, bile rising in his throat. No, this isn't real. But the moment he said it, he heard his own voice from inside the decayed cruiser whisper, "Not real. Real. Not real." He turned and ran. The road under his boots dissolved into mud, then into soft moss. The fog brightened around him, each breath pulling the world farther away until only sound remained. Radio hum, heartbeat, whisper, rain. He tripped and fell, palms hitting cold ground. He looked up and saw something glimmering ahead. A light, yellow, flickering. He crawled toward it, mud streaking his uniform. As he drew closer, the light sharpened into the glow of his cruiser's dash screen. He was back on the road. The car idled, engine humming smooth, headlights steady. He opened the door. Inside, the air was warm, clean. His reflection waited in the rearview mirror, calm, eyes steady. He whispered, "I made it." The reflection smiled. "You always do." Then it leaned forward, and for the first time, Reeves realized the reflection wasn't moving with him anymore. The radio clicked on. "Unit 47, confirm you've located the vehicle." He opened his mouth, but the voice that replied wasn't his. "Copy. Vehicle located. Occupant missing." The reflection spoke the words, lips forming them perfectly. Reeves backed away from the mirror. His voice shook. "Who are you?" The reflection tilted its head, same as the thing in the woods had done. "You. After." The dashcam light blinked red. The feed showed him sitting motionless in the driver's seat, except he wasn't. He was standing right here, watching. The him in the footage turned, eyes black and empty. The real Reeves, if he was still real, whispered, "Stop it." The figure on the screen smiled. Outside, the fog began to glow from within like light behind paper. Shapes moved in it. Uniforms, patrol hats, the glint of badges. They surrounded the car, silent. The radio whispered, "Stay on the line, Daniel." He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the car was gone. He stood alone on the road, soaked, the mile marker ahead reading 0. Behind him, another one glowed faintly. 0. Endless. He whispered to the night, voice small. "Not real. Real. Not real." The wind whispered back, "Stay." Reeves sat in the middle of the empty highway. The world had flattened into gray, no horizon, no stars, only that repeating mile. His radio hissed softly, a pulse like a heartbeat he no longer trusted. He whispered into the mic, "Dispatch, if anyone's listening." Nothing but the faint breath of static, then a voice, calm, measured, almost gentle. "Unit 47, status check." He swallowed hard. "I don't know. I think I've lost my way." "Stay on the road, Daniel." The voice was his. He threw the mic down. "Stop it," he muttered. "Stop using my voice." A sound answered from somewhere behind him. Slow, deliberate footsteps. He turned. The fog parted, revealing a man in a soaked uniform, badge gleaming faintly. He wore Reeves's face. "Who are you?" Reeves demanded. The figure smiled weakly. "I told you. You found me." Reeves backed up toward his cruiser, one hand on the door handle. "You're not me!" The double's head tilted. "Then who's driving the car?" Reeves spun. Through the windshield he saw a shape in the driver's seat, his own silhouette, hands steady on the wheel, staring forward. He staggered backward. The other Reeves walked closer, boots leaving no prints. "You always come back," the double whispered. "You always think you can change something." "Change what?" Reeves shouted. "What happened here?" Lightning cracked open the clouds. For a heartbeat, the world went white. When the light faded, they weren't on the road anymore. They stood in the clearing by the trees, the one with the broken shack. The air buzzed with static like invisible power lines overhead. The shack's door hung open, swaying gently. Inside, the walls had changed. The messages from before were gone. In their place, dozens of photographs pinned in neat rows. Each one showed Reeves in uniform, frozen mid-scan beside the same silver sedan, the same night, the same rain. Some photos were old, edges curled brown. Some looked freshly printed. He stepped forward, staring at one photo near the top. The timestamp printed below read 12:37 a.m., but the year was blurred under water damage. He turned slowly toward the double. "How many times have I been here?" The copy shrugged. "You stop counting when the road stops ending." Reeves's voice cracked. "I'm alive. I'm talking to you. That means I got out before." The double's smile thinned. "You think talking means alive?" Something moved at the back of the shack, a soft shuffle, a woman's breath. Reeves aimed his flashlight toward it. "Eleanor?" The beam found her kneeling in the corner, soaked hair hanging like threads over her face. Her hands clutched the floorboards. She was whispering to something beneath them. "Eleanor, it's okay," Reeves said, stepping closer. "I'm here to help." She didn't look up. Her whispering grew faster, desperate. He caught fragments. "Stay. Listen. Voice. Stay. Voice." He crouched and touched her shoulder. "Hey, we're going to—" She snapped her head up. Her eyes were hollow pits of white. Her mouth opened, but the voice that came out wasn't hers. It was his. "Don't touch her," his double said from behind him. Reeves stumbled backward. The woman stood, her movements jerky, limbs bending like a puppet's. She turned her face toward him, smiling too wide. "You found me again," she said in his voice. He raised his weapon, hands shaking. "You're not real. None of this is real." The woman's head tilted, same as the copies. "Then stop answering me." The flashlight flickered. The world blurred. The walls of the shack bent inward like soft paper. When the light steadied again, Eleanor was gone. So was the copy. He was alone, except for the whispers crawling along the walls. They formed words he couldn't ignore. "The mile doesn't end. The driver never leaves. He staggered outside, breathing sharp and fast. The clearing pulsed with light, dim, then bright, as though the world was sinking to a heartbeat he couldn't control. He looked down and realized his chest was moving out of rhythm with his breath. His reflection in a puddle moved first, then him, as if the image were leading the body. The radio on his belt came to life again. "Unit 47, time check." He raised it slowly. 12:37. AM or PM? He hesitated, looked at the sky. There was no sun, no moon, only the same gray pulse. "I don't know," the voice replied. "Then you're almost ready." The fog thickened, pressing in from all sides. Out of it stepped rows of figures. Troopers in old uniforms, badges rusted, faces blank. Each carried a radio. Each murmured the same thing. "Stay on the line." He backed up toward the cruiser. "You're not real." They stopped moving, then together whispered, "Not real. Real. Not real." He reached the car, yanked the door open, and climbed inside. The interior was dry, untouched by rain. The radio was already on. "Unit 47, said the voice, his voice, calm, professional. "You've located the vehicle. Do you confirm?" He stared at the mic. His reflection in the side mirror smiled back at him. He pressed the button. "Confirm." "Good," the voice said. "Now stay." The headlights flickered once. Outside, the road unrolled in both directions, endless and straight. The trees leaned inward like listeners. Reeves gripped the wheel. "If I stay, what happens?" The voice crackled. "You'll remember." "Remember what?" The radio hissed. Then the sound shifted into a low rumble, an engine idling. He looked down at the gear shift. His hand was already on it, moving on its own. He whispered, "Stop." The engine roared. The headlights cut through the fog. The cruiser began to move forward without his foot on the gas. He shouted, pulling the wheel, but it held steady, steering itself. The mile marker appeared ahead again. 0. Then again. 0. He realized the truth with sudden clarity. The road wasn't looping. He was. The cruiser's speakers filled with whispers now, overlapping, a chorus of his own voice, all saying the same thing in different tones. "Stay on the line, Daniel." He screamed back at them. "I'm trying to leave!" "Then stop driving," they said together. He slammed the brakes. The car stopped. The world fell silent. He sat there, hands trembling, until the fog parted enough to reveal a faint orange glow through the trees. A wreck, twisted metal, lights flashing dim under rain. His cruiser, the one he'd left hours ago, or years. He climbed out, boots sinking into mud, and walked toward the wreckage. Steam rose from the crushed hood. The windshield was shattered. Inside, a figure slumped against the steering wheel, uniformed, soaked, still. He pressed closer until he saw the face. His own. The body's eyes opened, and in his own voice it whispered, "You found her again." Steam lifted from the wreck like breath. Reeves stood with the rain cold on his scalp, staring at his own face behind the cracked windshield. The eyes in the body blinked slowly, like waking up hurts. He lifted his hand to the glass without meaning to. The other hand, his, did the same from inside, palm to palm, with a film of rain and safety glass between. He whispered, "Not real. Real. Not real." The mouth inside his shattered cruiser moved. His mouth, shaping words that fogged the glass. "You keep asking the wrong question," it said in his voice, weary but kind. "You ask if this is real. What you should ask is which you is asking." He stepped back. The fog around them tightened, a room with no corners. The mile markers dissolved. Only the wreck remained, the trees bent inward like ribs. He tried the door. It wouldn't open. He tried again, harder. The door sighed and shifted half an inch. He could smell coolant and wet plastic and iron. Memories came on like headlights. A sudden swerve, a shape in the road, rain stamped thick as nails, the sound of his radio punching through the storm. "Unit 47, status check." Then metal folded and light went sideways. He swallowed. "I crashed," he said out loud, to the rain, to the him behind the glass, to the night that had stopped moving. The figure behind the wheel smiled faintly. "You crash," it corrected, present tense. "You are always crashing. That's how the mile keeps its shape." The radio at his shoulder clicked, though he hadn't touched it. "Unit 47, said a clear voice, softer than before. "Stay on the line, Daniel." He stared at the mic like it could bite. "What line?" he asked the air. "The phone? The road? The—" He searched for a word smaller than forever and could not find one. A second voice folded into the first, a woman's, breathy, close. "Not a phone line," it whispered. "A lifeline." "Eleanor," he said, and the wrecked trees seemed to step back to listen. Something moved to his left. He turned. She stood there in the rain, not washed out now, not a smudge, but a person with tremble blue lips and hair pasted to her cheeks, alive in a way he hadn't let himself imagine. Her eyes met his. They were tired, and they were hers. "You keep following me," she said gently. "But you were never following me." He felt the ground tilt. "Then what?" "The voice," she answered, and the radio hiss picked up. Faint dispatch codes, a weather alert, his own name. It sounded like someone turning a thin stack of old reports. She took a step closer. "You heard me once. You stopped. You called it in. You did everything right." A pause. "Then you heard me again when there was no one left to answer." He looked down at his hands. They were shaking, but not from cold. "I don't remember stopping." "You don't let yourself," she said. "You keep going back to the moment before you did." He closed his eyes. The phrase slid up his throat without permission. "Not real. Real. Not real." He almost laughed, and the sound came out wrong. "If I stopped, why am I still here?" "Because you're good at your job," she said, as if that were the oldest curse in the world. He opened his eyes. The wreck had layered again, one image on top of another, bright with fresh emergency strobes in one frame, dim and moss-crawled in the next, empty in the third, and in all of them there was always a radio on the dash whispering. He felt something slot into place in his mind with a soft mechanical click. Stay on the line didn't mean stay connected. It meant hold the rope. He turned his head slowly. Behind Eleanor, beyond the wreck, the road filled with figures. Troopers in uniforms from different decades, hats wrong by small fashions, boots different. Radios old, radios new. Their mouths moved with the same quiet shape. "Stay on the line, Daniel." The phrase was a prayer passed down like a baton, and he had grabbed it mid-run and forgotten to let go. He faced the body in the seat again. What happens if I let go? He asked himself. The hymn behind the glass's eyes softened. You stop answering echoes. 1,000 small sounds arrived at once, rain tightening into beads in the pine needles, wind threading through a torn headliner, a battery dying and trying again. The world felt big enough to hurt. He flattened his palm against the window. I don't know how. Listen, Eleanor said behind him, and pointed not to the wreck, not to the road, but to the ditch. The water there had become perfectly still, a sheet of metal. He crouched, and a face looked back from it. Not his, not Eleanor's. A radio microphone. He heard himself on some old recorded tape he did not remember making. Unit 47, 1023. Investigating abandoned vehicle. The words were calm, exact. There was comfort in the routine. The tape clicked. Another version of his voice took over, slower, more human. If you hear me, don't come alone. Click. Another. If you hear me, don't answer. Click. Another, a whisper. If you hear me, run. He lifted his head. I was leaving notes for someone I'd be, he said, and hated how true it felt. Yes, Eleanor said, but the hollow loves a good listener. He stood, and the ditch water lost its mirror and went back to ordinary rain. The tree line shivered and settled. The wreck sighed. He reached for the door handle one more time, not to drag the other hymn out, but to see if he could touch the moment and not be swallowed by it. The door opened easily. Inside, the cab smelled faintly of coffee, long gone cold. There was a small, square object on the passenger seat that hadn't been there a breath ago. The tape recorder, old, with a red button big enough you could press it with gloved hands. A strip of masking tape labeled in block letters, Unit 47, if found. He looked at Eleanor. She nodded once. Say it right this time. He pressed record. The click echoed like a hammer in the ribs of the world. He spoke softly, like he was reading a bedtime story to something that had never slept. This is Trooper Daniel Reeves, he said. If you're hearing this, you're on the mile. It won't end. Not the way you want. You'll think the radio's wrong. You'll think the voice is a trick. You'll think, not real. Real. Not real. You'll be right, and you'll be wrong. If they tell you to stay on the line, they mean hold tight to what is still yours. Don't chase your own voice into the trees. Don't answer when the echo uses your name. Do not follow the half wave in the Polaroid. And if someone whispers from right beside your ear, he swallowed. That's where it likes to stand. Move forward. Don't turn to look. If you turn, it learns your face. He stopped the tape. The deck whirred to a halt. He ejected it and handed it to Eleanor. She surprised him by taking it. For a second, their fingers touched. Warm, human. The sensation was so plain that it scared him more than anything else had. How do you leave? He asked, small as a child under weather. Eleanor held the tape to her chest. You don't, she said. You arrive somewhere else. She tipped her chin toward the road. The fog ahead had pulled itself into a clean corridor. Far off, a faint suggestion of dawn that might have been nothing more than wish. He looked back at the wreck. His other self, the him who was always crashing, watched, expectant. The mouth behind the glass formed a phrase he recognized without hearing. Go. He breathed in, rain, metal, pine, and out. Fear, duty, habit. He unpinned his shoulder mic. The clip resisted a second, then came free with a small, tearing sound. He rolled the wire into his palm, feeling its stubborn weight. This had told him who he was for years. He set it gently on the hood beside the cracks that spidered the glass. The rain darkened the casing and made it look like an old stone. His chest felt lighter and wrong, like a missing badge. He whispered to fill the space. Not real. Real. Not real. The night whispered back, almost fond. Now you know. He turned to Eleanor. Walk with me? She nodded. They stepped onto the road together. The figures in the fog, troopers, old and new, didn't follow. They watched, hats shadowing faces, radios quiet for the first time since he'd noticed them. For a heartbeat, they looked like any line of officers at the edge of a scene, doing the hardest thing they ever learned to do. Nothing. They walked. The mile marker appeared, white on black. 0. Then another 0. Then nothing at all. Just wet asphalt shining like a strip of river. The hum in the ground softened to a low throat clearing, an old machine idling nowhere. He said, If I leave, who answers the next call? Eleanor said, Maybe no one. Maybe someone who hasn't learned your voice yet. She glanced at him. Maybe it won't call if you don't answer. He thought of the tape in her hand, of the note he'd written to the next him. He realized that all of his warnings had still been answers. He laughed under his breath, a small, tired sound. The road brightened ahead. Not day, but the idea of it. The sound of rain stepped back like a curtain. The wind came through the trees in one long, ordinary sigh. Behind them, the radio on the wreck crackled once, a reflex of a dying battery, and stilled. Eleanor stopped. This is where I turned last time, she said, when I thought the light was behind me. He took her hand. It was cool and real. Don't, he said. Not this time. They stood like that, two people listening for an answer that might never come. A breath passed, then another. The kind of silence you only hear right after a storm. From far away, a voice drifted over the hollow. Not the miles, not his. A new one, uncertain, young. Dispatch to Unit 63. We've got a 1026 on Route 73 near... The sound warped, thinned, continued. Near Deadman's Hollow. Reeves looked at Eleanor. She looked at the tape. They didn't speak. He could go back. He could warn them in person. He could hold the rope again. He felt the shape of the choice and let it pass through him. Not real, real, not real, he said, one last time, not as a question, but as a rhythm to walk by. They stepped forward into the pale suggestion of morning that might not exist. Behind them, the mile watched and learned nothing. The fog rolled in again from the hollows, like a tide too tired to stay out. The rain had stopped, but the world still dripped, branches, wires, the edge of the road, all giving up their last drops one by one. Reeves and Eleanor walked until their footsteps became the only sound. The light ahead wasn't sunlight, it was softer, a haze that didn't throw shadows. It felt like the idea of morning someone had described to a dream. Reeves slowed. If this ends, he said quietly, does it remember us? Eleanor kept her eyes on the road. Nothing here remembers. That's why it needs voices. The radio he'd left behind clicked once in the distance, an echo that reached them long after it should have died. He stopped walking. Maybe I should have left it on, he said. You did, she said. Every time. They reached the crest of a shallow hill. The mile marker there was blank, the metal plate scrubbed smooth by wind. Reeves brushed the surface with his fingertips. The metal was warm. He turned to look back. The fog had swallowed the hollow completely. No wreck, no lights, no endless road, just the color of old paper. Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. It'll open again when someone calls. He nodded. And when they do? She looked at him, and her face was suddenly younger, the same expression from the photograph he'd found, the half wave, the half smile. Then you answer, if you can still remember which side of the line you're on. He didn't ask which side that was. Some truths didn't survive questions. They walked again, and with each step the air grew lighter, the hum fading until it was only the memory of sound. Reeves pulled the soaked notebook from his pocket. The last page, the one that had rearranged its words, was blank now, except for a single line written in a hand that was not his. Let go when the voice sounds kind. He folded it and set it under a small stone by the road. Someone will find it, he murmured. Eleanor smiled. They always do. He felt the change before he saw it, the air warmer, the smell of wet asphalt giving way to cut grass. The horizon stretched open like a curtain being drawn back. He turned to Eleanor to tell her she'd made it out, but the space beside him was empty. Only his wet footprints marched beside his own. He stopped walking. Eleanor? Silence. Then, faintly, her voice from the distance between worlds. Stay on the line, Daniel. He closed his eyes. Not this time. When he opened them, the fog had thinned to mist, and beyond it lay a stretch of ordinary highway. Cars in the far distance, a sign he didn't recognize. The mile had folded itself away, hiding in plain sight. He stepped onto the shoulder, breath hitching in his chest. The world felt heavier, more solid. He could smell diesel and hear the faraway sound of a train. Real things. He stood there until the rhythm of his pulse matched the rhythm of the wind through the trees. He found a rest stop half a mile down. The vending machines hummed. A payphone leaned crooked against a wall. He picked up the receiver. It was warm. A dial tone hummed through the line, steady, human. He laughed softly under his breath. Dispatch, he whispered into the phone. A pause. Then a voice answered, clear and new. A young woman he didn't know. Tennessee State Patrol, go ahead. He hesitated. This is... He stopped, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Never mind. He set the receiver back in its cradle, the hum cut off. For a long moment he stood there, palm on the payphone, listening to the silence where the tone had been. Then he stepped outside. The clouds were breaking, strips of blue between them. A truck roared by, the rush of air pushing against his coat. The real world smelled of gasoline and earth. He whispered to himself, just to hear the words. Not real. Real. Not real. The words didn't echo. They just ended. He took the folded tape recorder from his pocket, the one Eleanor had carried. The reel inside clicked once, eager. He pressed play. His own voice filled the quiet, low and patient. This is Trooper Daniel Reeves. If you're hearing this, you're on the mile. He listened until the end. If someone whispers from right beside your ear, that's where it likes to stand. Move forward. Don't turn to look. He smiled, small and tired, then clicked stop. The tape wound down. He left it on the picnic table by the payphone, a gift for whoever would need it next. He walked toward his cruiser, or what looked like his cruiser, parked under a dripping oak. The license plate gleamed wetly in the light. For a heartbeat, he thought it would vanish when he reached for the handle, but it didn't. The metal was cool, solid, real. He sat inside, turned the key. The radio came alive, static, curling like smoke. "Unit 47, said a voice, distant but steady. "You're clear." He stared at the receiver, throat tight. "Say that again." "You're clear," it repeated. He smiled, eyes wet. "Copy." The line went dead. The wind moved through the trees. For the first time in what felt like years, it didn't whisper his name. He pulled onto the highway. The tires hummed a normal, forgettable song. The mile behind him folded itself shut. Miles later, at a red light in a small town, he glanced at the passenger seat. The Polaroid lay there, dry, uncreased, untouched by rain. It showed an empty stretch of highway under a clean sky. No car, no people. Just the mile. He turned it over. The back was blank. He slipped it into the glove box and drove on. The radio stayed quiet. The sun broke through for the first time. He didn't notice the faint whisper behind the static at first. It was almost too soft, almost gentle. But it was there. "Unit 47, come in." He reached for the mic, hesitated, then pulled his hand back. "Not this time," he said. The whisper paused, then changed shape, his voice older, worn. "You already did." The signal grew louder, washing over the sound of the engine. Reeves turned up the volume until the noise filled the car. Somewhere within it, beneath the hum, another voice, female, broken by distance, said, "And if you're hearing this, it already knows you." The tape clicked. Silence. A beat later, the radio cracked open with one final sound. A quiet, uncertain laugh. Then the frequency went flat. The cruiser rolled down the highway, alone, headlights still on in daylight. The wind carried the last trace of his voice, scattering it over the hills, until there was nothing left but the ordinary noise of the world.